Imagine a land stretching from the Arctic to Asia, where endless forests and mighty rivers meet winters so fierce they can halt armies. This is Russia, a place shaped by its vast, challenging geography. Its sheer size offered immense resources but made it difficult to govern and defend. The open steppe was a highway for invaders, while long winters bred resilience. Great rivers like the Dnieper and Volga connected scattered tribes, forging a unique character of toughness and endurance. Over 1,000 years ago, these lands were home to Slavic, Finno-Ugric, and Turkic peoples. Farmers, hunters, and traders without a single ruler. They awaited a catalyst to unite them. That spark arrived from across the sea, the Vikings, whose arrival would change everything. This is the beginning of Ruses, the ancestor of modern Russia, a story born in legend and the clash of cultures. In the vast forested lands of Eastern Europe, the early Slavic tribes lived in scattered villages, often divided and embroiled in constant disputes. Their world was one of uncertainty and frequent conflict, as rival chieftains vied for power and resources. Mired in chaos and lacking a unifying force, these tribes yearned for stability and order, something or someone to bring them together. In 862, their call was answered from the north. Viking chieftain Rurik, a formidable leader from Scandinavia, arrived with his warriors, sailing down the rivers and establishing his rule in Novgorod. This moment marked not just the founding of a new dynasty, but the very beginning of the Russian state, a turning point in the region's history. The Rus, as these Norse newcomers were called, were more than just conquerors. They were skilled traders and navigators, drawn by the promise of wealth along the great river routes that linked the Baltic north to the riches of Byzantium in the south. Their longships carried not only warriors but also furs, honey, and silver, connecting distant cultures through commerce. Rurik's successors, the ambitious Oleg and Igor, pressed further south. They captured the strategic city of Kiev, uniting the northern and southern lands under one rule. This bold move laid the foundation for Kievan Ruses, a powerful new state that would dominate the region for centuries. Over time, this new state became a vibrant blend of Viking and Slavic cultures. Norse rulers gradually adopted local customs, languages, and traditions, marrying into Slavic families and forging a unique identity that was neither wholly Scandinavian nor entirely Slavic. Kievan Rus flourished as a federation of principalities, each ruled by a member of the Rurikid dynasty. These princes governed their lands from fortified towns, overseeing trade, justice, and diplomacy, while still recognizing the authority of the Grand Prince in Kiev. Yet, power was never absolute. The Grand Prince of Kiev held sway, but rival princes constantly challenged his authority, leading to intrigue, shifting alliances, and frequent disputes within the ruling family. Everyday life revolved around the rivers and fortified towns. These waterways were the lifeblood of the land, supporting trade, travel, and communication. As Norse and Slavic peoples mingled, a new distinct identity began to emerge, one shaped by both tradition and transformation. The Norse had become rulers of a vast and diverse land, but their journey was far from over. An even greater transformation loomed on the horizon, one that would forever alter the destiny of the people and the land they now called home. Soon, the choice of a faith would define the very soul of Russia, setting the stage for a new chapter in its history, one shaped by spiritual as well as political unity. By the late 10th century, Kievan Ruses was a pagan power surrounded by Christian and Islamic empires. Grand Prince Vladimir the Great realized his people needed a unifying faith. According to legend, envoys explored the world's religions, but it was the splendor of Byzantine Christianity that captivated them. In 988, Vladimir was baptized, and the mass conversion of his people followed. This decision tied Ruses to Byzantium, bringing priests, architects, and the Cyrillic alphabet. Stone churches and religious icons transformed spiritual life, and the Orthodox Church became a unifying force. The choice of Eastern Orthodoxy set Russia apart from Catholic Europe, shaping its culture and politics. The Church fostered a sense of collective identity and spiritual mission, Holy Russia. Vladimir's choice would echo through centuries, defining Russian civilization. A new era had begun, distinct from both East and West. The Golden Age of Kievan Rus ended with the Mongol invasion in the 13th century. The Golden Horde swept through, destroying cities and shattering the Kievan state. For over 2 centuries, Russian principalities lived under the Mongol yoke, paying tribute and enduring raids. This domination isolated Russia from the west and shifted power northward. In the forests, Moscow began its rise, its princes shrewdly cooperating with Mongols to gain power and territory. Moscow became the spiritual heart by bringing the Orthodox Church's leader to the city. Prince Dmitry Donskoy's victory at Kulikovo proved the Mongols could be challenged. Though Mongol rule lingered, Moscow was uniting the Russian lands. The groundwork was laid for a new centralized Russian state. Out of devastation, Moscow prepared to break free. A new power was emerging from the ashes. By the late 15th century, Ivan the Great ended Mongol rule and expanded Moscow's territory. He claimed the title Tsar, laying the foundation for autocratic rule. His grandson, Ivan the Terrible, was crowned the first Tsar of all the Russias. Ivan's early reign brought reform and conquest, transforming Russia into a vast multi-ethnic empire. But paranoia and brutality followed. His secret police, the Oprichnina, unleashed terror, and he even killed his own son. Ivan's rule left Russia larger but deeply scarred. His death sparked a succession crisis and the time of troubles, civil war, famine, and foreign invasion. Impostors vied for the throne and the state teetered on collapse. Russia faced chaos, desperate for new leadership. The Rurik dynasty ended, and the nation's future hung in the balance. A new dynasty would soon rise from the turmoil. Out of the chaos and devastation of the time of troubles, the Romanov family emerged in 1613, restoring a fragile sense of order to a fractured nation. Their rise marked the beginning of a new era for Russia, one that would last for over 3 centuries and shape the destiny of millions. The early Romanovs worked tirelessly to rebuild the state, strengthening the monarchy and centralizing power. They re-established institutions, restored the economy, and sought to unify the vast territories under their control. Yet their rule also solidified the harsh system of serfdom, binding millions of peasants to the land and to their noble landlords. Then came Peter the Great, a towering figure whose vision and ambition would transform Russia forever. He modernized the country by force, building a powerful new army-navy and a magnificent new capital, St. Petersburg, carved out of the northern marshes. Peter forced Western customs and dress on the nobility, determined to drag Russia into the modern age. He expanded Russia's reach to the Baltic Sea, opening new trade routes and asserting Russian power in Europe. Peter's sweeping reforms and relentless drive made Russia a formidable European power, but his changes came at a tremendous human cost, with countless lives lost and traditions uprooted. Later, Catherine the Great continued his legacy, ruling with intelligence and ambition. She embraced Enlightenment ideas, corresponded with philosophers, and expanded the empire even further. Catherine's armies defeated the Ottomans, gained the strategic region of Crimea, and absorbed much of Poland through a series of partitions. Under her rule, Russia's borders stretched ever wider. By the time of her death, the Russian Empire extended from the plains of Poland all the way to the Pacific Ocean, a vast autocracy built on military might, expansion, and the labor of millions of serfs. The empire was powerful and awe-inspiring, but beneath its glittering palaces and grand ceremonies, it was deeply unequal. The seeds of future unrest and revolution were sown beneath its grandeur. Change and contradiction defined the Russian Empire, setting the stage for the upheavals to come. The 19th century brought triumph and turmoil. Russia's defeat of Napoleon made it a continental power, but serfdom kept millions in bondage. Serfs, bound to the land and owned by nobles, faced poverty and injustice. Calls for reform grew, and unrest simmered. In 1861, Tsar Alexander II emancipated the serfs, freeing 23 million people. But flawed reforms left many peasants in debt and poverty, fueling frustration. Political unrest grew as the intelligentsia demanded change. Radical groups turned to violence, culminating in Alexander II's assassination in 1881. His death ushered in repression, but the drive for change persisted. The empire's contradictions deepened, military might alongside social stagnation. The stage was set for revolution. Russia stood at a crossroads, its old order under threat. The coming storm would sweep away centuries of autocracy. After the shocking assassination of Alexander II, the Russian Empire entered a period of deep uncertainty. His successors, fearing unrest and revolution, clamped down on reform and tightened their grip on power. Hopes for progress and modernization were stifled as the government became increasingly repressive. determined to maintain the old order at any cost. Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, ascended the throne at a time of immense change. Isolated within the gilded walls of his palaces, he was out of touch with the struggles of his people and unprepared for the challenges of a rapidly modernizing nation. His reluctance to adapt would prove disastrous. Across Russia, industrialization brought new factories and bustling cities, but also harsh working conditions and growing urban unrest. Meanwhile, millions of peasants remained trapped in poverty and desperation, fueling anger and resentment toward the ruling elite. In 1905, Russia's humiliating defeat by Japan and the Bloody Sunday Massacre, where peaceful protesters were gunned down, shattered the people's faith in the Tsar. The nation was rocked by strikes, protests, and calls for change. Revolution erupted, forcing Nicholas to grant a constitution and create a parliament, the Duma. But he resisted real change, undermining reforms and clinging to autocratic rule, deepening the people's frustration. World War I proved catastrophic for Russia. Millions of soldiers died on the front lines, the economy collapsed under the strain of war, and famine swept the countryside. The monarchy's credibility crumbled as the suffering grew. The mysterious Rasputin's influence over the royal family, combined with government corruption and chaos, deepened the crisis. The people's trust in their leaders vanished. By 1917, food shortages and hardship reached a breaking point. Protests for bread erupted in Petrograd, quickly spreading across the country and igniting a full-scale revolution. Soldiers exhausted by war and sympathetic to the people's plight joined the crowds. Facing overwhelming opposition, Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, bringing an end to more than 3 centuries of Romanov rule. A weak and divided provisional government struggled to maintain order, unable to address the nation's urgent needs. Sensing opportunity, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized the moment and prepared for a new revolution. Promising peace, land, and bread, the Bolsheviks rallied workers, soldiers, and peasants. In October, they launched a second revolution, toppling the provisional government and creating the world's first communist state. The old order was swept away. Russia was reborn in revolution, setting the stage for a new era that would change the world forever. Russia's story is one of epic transformation, from scattered tribes to a vast empire, from monarchy to revolution. 3 forces shaped its destiny: conquest, reform, and revolution. Expansion built a multi-ethnic empire, demanding centralized power. Reforms, Christianization, Westernization, emancipation, changed society but often fell short. When the system failed to adapt, revolution swept away the old order. The clash between these forces defined Russia's path. Was it conquest, reform, or revolution that shaped Russia most? Perhaps the real story lies in their unending dramatic collision.